Okay, we'll just make sure all the camos are ready. All right, thank you for being here this afternoon in Lismore. We have important updates about the latest information of the emergency for Cyclone Alfred. A few things that we want to say which are important. Firstly, there has been an extension of the evacuation orders from yesterday evening into other parts of the Northern Rivers. They are Bowraville, parts of Maxville, parts of Port Macquarie, North Shore, Settlement Point, Hastings River Drive, Hibbard Drive, South Golden Beach, not too far from here, just north of Byron, and New Brighton. And so the same message to communities in the Lismore, Clarence area apply to those communities as well, and that is seek shelter, go to family and friends first. There are emergency evacuation centres that are located if there are no alternatives, but we have to reiterate the message that these are more of a life raft rather than a cruise ship, and the priority is to keep people safe during a difficult situation. I want to make it clear that this has been obviously there's been many media conferences today, and we don't want the public to be overwhelmed with media conferences, so we're going to keep this local, tight, and very much to the point. What I'd like to say in the first instance is that with those evacuation orders, the advice very clearly from the SES is to stay off the roads unless you have to travel because you're part of those evacuation orders. Now, rather than rousing on the public or issuing a denunciation of the people of the Northern Rivers, we want to report this morning or this afternoon that there has been widespread community support and compliance with evacuation orders in the Northern Rivers. Now, this is fantastic news. This is an example of the public rallying to the SES's message. And yesterday afternoon, thousands of people, literally thousands of people, were asked to leave their home. The message that we're reporting today is that that has happened. This is a huge relief to the SES, to the local council, to the New South Wales government. It means that people are following the messages that the government is giving, and they're keeping themselves and their families safe as a result. So if you're one of the few people that are remaining in your house and you're in an evacuation area, you're one of the only people in your street left, and you will literally be by yourself. So please follow these evacuation orders. Unless you have to stay off the roads, it's hugely important. Second point we want to talk about this morning or this afternoon is that there are tens of thousands of houses in the Northern River without electricity. This is as a result of Alfred. This is as a result of high winds moving through those communities, knocking over power poles, knocking over trees and making it a very hazardous situation. Now, Essential Energy can report that this morning that number stood at 43,000. They've managed to get it to 36,500. Still tens of thousands of houses, but it's an example of essential energy workers, linesmen, electricians working very hard in dangerous, hazardous conditions to get as much of the public reconnected as possible. However, we're expecting multiple days for much of that community to be switched on to electricity. I don't want the public to believe that this is because crews haven't been pre-positioned, but any reasonable person would acknowledge that in these conditions we need to make sure that crews are safe and that they can get to power outages to reconnect communities. They're going to do it as soon as possible, but they need to do it in a safe way. Falling debris is still a major issue. That's why we're asking people to stay off the roads. Please follow directions. And the last point I want to make before I pass over to Stuart from the SES, Stuart Fisher from the SES, is that we're not through this. We acknowledge that this is a long weather event. We know that it's been delayed, that we were expecting this on Friday morning. It's now likely to make landfall on Saturday around midday. However, we're asking the public to be vigilant, to continue to follow SES orders. Our sincere hope is that the community gets through this without any loss of life and that we can, when this is all over, focus on the rebuild. But the priority at the moment is to keep community safe. And the best way of keeping yourself and your family safe, as well as an emergency service volunteer, is to download the Hazards Near Me app, evacuate if you're in an evacuation zone, and never, ever drive through floodwaters. Stuart?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. With the help of the community, it is so pleasing to see they are following our direction. The evacuation orders are being followed. They are helping us get through this event, and we thank the community for that. At the moment, we have over 29,000 dwellings under evacuation order, 19,000 people involved in that, 18 emergency warnings to evacuate, and 24 watch and acts to prepare to evacuate. It is really, really pleasing for us to see that our warnings are being acknowledged and treated, and the members of the public are treating this seriously. As a result of that, overnight we only had 5 flood rescues. That goes to show us that everyone is listening to us. As the Premier said, we don't expect you to drive through flooded waters. You are heeding that advice, and we thank you for that.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Stu. So I'm the local emergency operations controller, so I am coordinating all of the other resources outside the combat agency. What I can say is that there are over several thousand extra resources in town at the moment and across the Northern Rivers. They are working 24/7 to keep the community safe. And just to reiterate what the Premier and also Stuart said, we couldn't be more pleased with the response from the community. They've heeded the advice. They've evacuated with plenty of time. We don't need people to get complacent because this weather system seems to have slowed. It is still packing a very mighty punch. So we will see weather conditions deteriorate over the next couple of days. So we need to remain vigilant. You need to look after your friends, family, and also your neighbours. We have several evacuation centres that are open right across the Northern Rivers. They are all operating 24/7. We are working around the clock with logistics and resupply, so they are coming. And we just ask the community just to continue to do what they've been doing and heed the advice. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to repeat what every other speaker has said, that the community has been wonderful, absolutely wonderful, right across the Northern Rivers, right down the North Coast, everywhere. And also, you know, I'm listening to what's happening in Queensland because Cyclone Alfred knows no border, so we've got our eyes, you know, firmly there. I cover Tweed areas and Tweed and Coolangatta, absolutely side by side. A tree goes down, it's down in both places. And also, I know in the Tweed area there's a call out there to conserve water because the pumps have stopped pumping because no power, so that message is clear. If you run out of water, drinking water, you need it, go to an evac centre and pick some up. I know, you know, there won't be a lot, but you'll get some, so I want to just make sure. Also, unfortunately, the scams have started, and a scam started this morning, and I say to people, if you see somebody's name on it that's well known, just ignore it, because give it or your trusted other sources like Red Cross, but everyone you know locally. So they're my messages. Thank you.
Steve, jump in, mate.
G'day everybody. Great messaging that's coming out of Lismore in particular. The evacuation went out at 6 o'clock last night and there was a lot of questions raised as to why so early, and it's really important, having been down there today, to understand why these evacuations take place. And I know the Reconstruction Authority's taken a bit of a pizzling over the last few months, but I've got to give credit to the Reconstruction Authority for being so proactive in this event. I also want to thank the Premier. It takes a lot of courage when you're running a state to come up here and ride this event out with the local residents, and to Premier Chris Minns and Jihad and also Tony Sheldon, our federal senator. Thank you for showing the care and the concern for our community. It does mean a lot. There is so much stress and anxiety. I got a spray this morning from someone saying you should have done bloody more, and fair enough too. You know, I get it, but you can't learn unless you're here, and so thank you so much for being here. We've got a long way to go, still a lot of lessons to learn, but from where we were in 2022 to where we are now, full credit to the Reconstruction Authority and the state government, and also the support of the federal government through Kevin to get us to this point. So thank you.
Good on you, Steve. We're happy to take questions. We'll get to your questions.
On the ADF, when can we expect to see people around, and where will they be going?
Yeah, they'll be working in with the SES. The Prime Minister has made ADF personnel available to state agencies. We're very grateful for that. It's very important that we have that capacity if the worst is realised. And you don't have to convince anyone on the Northern Rivers about how dedicated and professional the ADF are. They were fantastic in 2022. I remember seeing with my own eyes, they were incredible. So we know that they're there in case the surge is required. We really appreciate the help.
We've got boats on standby and helicopters as well.
Yeah, I mean, the SES has a massive flood rescue operation that has been pre-positioned to the Northern Rivers. 40 flood rescue teams have been pre-positioned up here. But we don't want anyone to feel complacent as a result of the significant infrastructure that's in place. Like you drive through Lismore, the same goes for Ballina, the same goes for Byron. We were in all of those shires yesterday. You do see the side of the street filled with emergency service vehicles, which is good news. It doesn't mean that you can ride out the storm in an evacuation zone if you've been given an evacuation order. Because notwithstanding the huge amount of resources that we've got up here, there aren't the same number of boats as there are houses. And in the event of a major natural disaster, we can't be everywhere at the same time.
The M1 seems to be obviously cut up north. How are the other major arterial roads, and is there a threat of isolation?
Yeah, I think Scott's best to handle that.
Thanks, Simon. We are seeing a number of local roads that are being cut. We do know that south is still open on the M1. We also have the Bruxner and the Summerland Way are still passable. But what I want to reiterate again is that if you don't need to be on the road, don't go on the road. Leave those roadway networks open for emergency services and resupply vehicles. Or if you are attempting to get to a safer location, by all means.
Are they under threat?
At this stage, they will be under threat. If the amount of water that is predicted to come, we will see blockages on those main arterial roads.
And how will that go with logistics, getting supplies in?
As we saw in 2022, we had a fleet of helicopters. We have, talking on the ADF request, we have 178 ADF people already here with 30 high clearance vehicles. So we have the capacity now to get through some of that higher flood water.
Some people have chosen to stay, even though they were supposed to evacuate last night. Any advice for them? Are they able to leave? Can they leave, or is there a cut-off point?
I would strongly encourage everyone that has been living or who is in the evacuation zone to leave now. The weather will deteriorate over the next few hours, and then it may be too late to leave.
Are you expecting the need for resident or the desire from residents to get out in their own boats and carry out flood rescues like we saw in 2022? And is there advice about that and the programs and systems in place to ensure safety?
Look, if I could stand here next week and tell you that we did no flood rescues, I would be very, very happy because that will mean the community has heeded our advice. We do know that the Lismore people will step up in times of crisis, and they always do, and the Northern Rivers, I should say. What we do want people to understand, and what's been clearly documented, is that there will not be enough boats and there will not be enough rescue people if people don't heed the advice. So take the time now to get out of those evacuation spaces, and we won't need the community to step up.
What's the latest on coastal erosion? What are we seeing there, and what are the risks?
So there has been coastal surges. There is still some considerable high tides that are occurring. A number of the beaches have been affected, but we're still very early in this cyclone here. In actual fact, the cyclone hasn't even hit landfall yet. So that'll be a lot of work that we're undertaking.
And where is the storm surge risk?
Up from the Yamba all the way through to the Gold Coast.
That's a very good point. Can I add to that? And I'll just get Jihad to speak to it in a minute as well. We're in Lismore, and we're also focused on the levee, obviously, because that's where the evacuation orders went out yesterday afternoon. However, it's very important to note that this threat extends all the way from Queensland, in the New South Wales perspective, from the Queensland border and inland into Lismore. The evacuation orders that have been announced this morning apply to Tweed. I've spoken to the Mayor of Tweed yesterday, Chris. I made contact with and had an exchange over the text line with the member for Tweed, Jeff Provost, Justine Elliott, we were with yesterday. This is a serious issue for those communities, particularly low-lying communities close to the coast as well. And for obvious reasons, there is a intense focus on Lismore, but we're concerned about Tweed and the Upper Byron area as well. Jihad, did you want to speak to that?
I might just add a little more. Thanks, Premier. Just in picking up on that, what we've seen is the breadth of this whole weather pattern. And I suppose in summing it up, what you can see is that it seems to be coming and going at different times, but it stretches over from, a border right down to the mid-coast of New South Wales. What we've been doing is as much preparation as possible, and like everybody else has said, we're so incredibly grateful because we've been standing up day after day saying, please heed the call, take the advice, don't take any risks. And I think to answer the question in particular about the flood rescues, if people are not in a situation where there could be danger, then it means there's no need to rescue them. I also appreciate the way that people have responded in terms of the evacuations themselves, and we see that there are 19 evacuation centres open and people are there. Now they are staffed and people are being fed, and also making that point really clear that the evacuation is a place that you might go to if you don't know if you've got friends or you've got family that you might get to first, it might be a bit more comfortable. Our intention of having people in an evacuation centre is having them in a place that is safe. And we want people to be safe, we want you to be safe, we want you to make sure that you get there. I suppose to sum it all up, what we do now is we're just waiting for it. We've seen today, up and down the coast at different parts, incredibly heavy rain at parts. We've seen really strong winds at over, up to 100 kilometres an hour. And then we see other bits where potentially it looks calm. So this stretches an entire geographical area. We know that when it hits, it's going to hit a large area, and that means that we need to be prepared for everything. The community is working well, the agencies are working well, we're all working together, and if we continue to work together, look out for one another, protect each other, we will get through this.
Stuart, what's the latest, or did you have something to add on?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say in relation to the spontaneous volunteering, we are working closely with the local communities in relation to that, the Tinny Army. We are currently there with them and negotiating and having a chat. When the time is right, we will ask them to call and come give us a hand.
Stuart, what's the latest modelling on the Wilsons River? When will this peak arrive?
Look, I think again this is dependent on the weather and the rains from that tropical cyclone. We are monitoring that with the Bureau of Meteorology, and as we're told, we'll update everybody. But it is a moving beast, and that's why we're here again today. We would have been at a point 3 days ago where this thing has passed, but we're still waiting for it to hit. So
yesterday you said 10.8 metres. Is there modelling you're looking at?
Yeah, we do expect down around that Lismore area to top the levee sometime tomorrow at around that 11 metre mark. But again, it's heavily dependent on the water flows, and we'll monitor that. But we do expect it to top sometime on Saturday.
What about the What about the Norwillen Bar levy? Are you expecting that to overtop?
I don't have the figures on that one. I can come back to you on that. You can?
Yep. I'm concerned about the Murwillumbah levee because we've got a lot of levees all over the northern rivers and down the north coast. So, yes, Lismore levee, but Murwillumbah levee, I'm concerned, and I've been watching it and staying in touch with the controller up there, Superintendent Dave Rockwell and Mick Dempsey. We've got a 4 o'clock hookup on the Tweed and Murwillumbah, so I can come back to you with some more specifics on that, Emma.
What about Kyogle?
Yeah, Kyogle, it's expected, the predictions were major flood, and they were talking 16 to 17. It was 16 metres in 2008. I recall we were there. So, it's everywhere. It's the whole region. So we're looking out for the whole region, the whole north coast. It's also spreading some of the weather to the northern tablelands. I've got a hook up at 4 o'clock with the northwestern zone as well, because you know that Tenterfield's in my electorate, and I've been in touch with the Mayor and Senator Sheldon and everyone else. We all have been this morning.
Can I just add one more point, if it's okay? And I suppose it's a little bit of a point about where we're at. Obviously, the SES here is leading in terms of the combat agency, but you could see the incredible role that the police play in terms of the leadership role they play. But there's also been incredible support with all our emergency services. There's the fire and rescue here, the RFS are here, the Volunteer Rescue Association, Marine Rescue, Surf Lifesavers, the AMBOs are here. All of our government agencies are here to support in whatever way they can. Health has sent people in, particularly to assist people who are going through some difficulties at the moment, as it triggers some memories and some examples of what's happened in the past. Further to that, we've got our community agencies who are here as well, including the Salvation Army, including the Red Cross. And the reason I say all this is because we're doing everything that we can to provide that wraparound support to the community. We won't be able to stop this cyclone from hitting our shores, but what we can do is do as much preparation as possible and make sure that when it does happen, we're supporting one another to get through it.
Thanks, Jane.
Which areas are affected by power outages and how many essential energy crews with it?
Yeah, we've got Mark from Essential.
He's been waiting.
Perfect, thank you. Been waiting for this moment.
He's waiting.
As we said earlier, our crews have been attending to some jobs this morning in some very trying conditions. Our numbers expedited last night when that weather came in around 1 o'clock up on the Tweed, and then in 3 o'clock in around Lismore, Ballina area. So at the moment, this morning we had 44,500 customers without supply. We've managed to bring that back to just over 36,000 now, so at lunchtime today. So we are out there very, very steadily and very safely making some progress. Predominantly the bulk of those customers, probably around about the 35,000 of those customers this morning were in the Tweed Heads area. So Tweed Heads, Moorlambar, Ewingsdale, Byron Bay were the hardest hit areas with the wind and the rain this morning, causing a lot of vegetation damage, a lot of trees over mains, a lot of broken off power poles because trees have fallen onto the network, causing those interruptions. Thankfully, in the Ballina area, those outages were a little less severe, and again into the Lismore area, again a lot less severe there. So our crews will continue to make some progress. It will be slow over the next couple of days, obviously with the further impact of the weather, but we will continue, and we do have resources standing by, including some helicopters on standby to start moving resources around over the next couple of days to get on top of those customer outages.
Okay, we might get these senior officials back to their day jobs, but is there any last minute questions?
Yes. Signed evacuation centre update, probably that's gone.
Yeah.
Just details.
The evacuation centres are on the SES website.
Numbers?
I can give you numbers.
19.
19 evacuation centres.
316 people.
And is there capacity? I think it's really about capacity for them to cope.
Yeah.
So how many have come in since last night, last 24 hours, and is there capacity going forward?
There is capacity. There is obviously going to be, from time to time, it's not the most salubrious of accommodation, but our focus is making it safe so that people can ride out the storm. Our preference is that people go and stay with family and friends in the first instance, but I was at with Jihad and Mal Lanyon at the Ocean Shores Evac Centre, not far from Byron, yesterday afternoon. Wonderful people. There was no other options. They listened to emergency services. They evacuated their homes. We really appreciate that they're there. We're asking people to bring their documents, their essential documents. We're asking them to register, and we're asking them to bring a sleeping bag or some kind of bedding. We just want to make sure that they're safe. Okay. Of course, Jihad's right. Bring your medicine as well. Okay, thanks. You know what? We're going to leave with a final message from Jenny Dowd from the Red Cross. And the reason for that is there'd be a lot of people who are watching, maybe feeling a little frustrated about what they can do. There is something that you can do. You can give blood. Jenny, do you want to give that message?
Yes, thank you. We're asking people throughout the state and Australia to roll up their sleeves and give blood. You can give us your thoughts and prayers, but we need something practical from you, and that is blood. We have 22 centres throughout the region that are closed down because of this event, and we need other centres and people to take up the slack, if you like. So Australian Red Blood puts out that Australian Red Cross puts out that call to people. I do have numbers for the Lismore Evacuation Centre as of midday today, 215 people there, and people are still coming in. The agencies are working really well. It's calm, it's very well run, and could I say a shout out to DCJ who are running that centre really, really well. In Lismore, at the moment, we have stretchers, blankets, pillows, but we may encourage people to bring their sleeping bags because we may, be testing those numbers. But people are in 4 different blocks at Southern Cross, depending on their needs, and it's running very, very well.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
My goodness.